Psychoanalytic criticism is a way of looking at literature using ideas from psychoanalysis, a type of therapy created by Sigmund Freud. This kind of therapy tries to treat mental problems by exploring the hidden or unconscious parts of the mind. In therapy, people talk freely about their thoughts and feelings so that hidden fears or painful memories can come to the surface and be dealt with. Freud believed that much of our behavior is influenced by unconscious thoughts, even if we are not aware of them. One of Freud's main ideas is the unconscious, which is the part of the mind that stores feelings and memories we are not aware of but that still affect us. Linked to this is repression, which means pushing away uncomfortable thoughts or desires so we don't have to deal with them. Sometimes these repressed feelings come out in disguised ways, a process Freud called sublimation. For example, someone may turn sexual desires into religious devotion or creativity. Freud also came up with a three-part model of the mind: the id, which holds our basic desires, the ego, which deals with reality, and the superego, which represents our sense of right and wrong. Freud thought a lot about sexuality and how it affects our lives from a very young age. He believed in infantile sexuality, the idea that sexual feelings begin in infancy. One famous idea is the Oedipus complex, where a young boy wants to take the place of his father and be close to his mother. It also introduced the idea of libido, the energy linked to sexual desire, which goes through different stages: oral, anal, and phallic. Some important terms in psychoanalysis include transference, when a patient transfers feelings from one person, like a parent to the therapist, and projection, when someone sees their own feelings in someone else instead of admitting them. These are called defense mechanisms, ways to protect ourselves from emotional pain. Freud also believed that dreams reveal hidden truths. He said dreams displacement, changing one thing for another, and condensation, combining several ideas into one image. These dream techniques are similar to how stories in literature work, using symbols, images, and indirect language to express deeper meanings. In everyday language, people often use the terms unconscious and subconscious as if they mean the same thing. However, in Freudian psychoanalysis, this is incorrect. Freud briefly used the word subconscious in his early writings but soon abandoned it. He felt it wrongly suggested that everything in the mind was close to being conscious, which goes against his theory. Instead, he focused on the unconscious, which refers to a specific part of the mind where repressed thoughts and desires are hidden because they are too painful or disturbing to face. The unconscious holds mental content that has been pushed out of awareness through repression. These hidden contents are often childhood wishes or unresolved conflicts that influence behavior, even though we are unaware of them. The unconscious expresses itself directly, often through dreams, using processes like condensation, combining several ideas into one image, and displacement, shifting emotional energy from one thing to another. These ideas were clearly explained by Laplanche and Pontalis in their work The Language of Psychoanalysis. There is also a concept called preconscious, which is different from the unconscious. The preconscious acts like a waiting room between the unconscious and conscious mind. It includes information that is not active in our minds but can be easily recalled when needed, like the name of a childhood pet when prompted. Because of the confusion it creates, using the word subconscious is best avoided in serious discussions of Freudian theory. When referring to Freudian ideas in literary criticism or psychoanalysis, the correct term to use is unconscious, not subconscious, in order to be accurate and clear. Freudian interpretation is commonly misunderstood as the act of assigning crude sexual symbolism to everyday objects, like seeing towers or ladders as phallic symbols. While this oversimplified view became a caricature even in Freud's lifetime, genuine Freud analysis is often nuanced and insightful. At its core, Freud's theory holds that dreams act as a release valve for repressed desires, fears, or memories that the conscious mind cannot face. These elements are disguised in the dream through mechanisms like displacement and condensation, which allow the content to bypass internal censorship and enter the dream in symbolic form. For instance, consider a dream featuring a Roman soldier. Freud would suggest that this soldier could symbolize multiple emotional elements in the dreamer's life. Suppose the dreamer is a young adult trying to assert independence from a strict authoritarian father. The soldier associated with discipline and authority may symbolize the father. At the same time, the Roman soldier might also represent a desired romantic partner, perhaps even someone forbidden by the father, thanks to associative ideas like the stereotype of the Latin lover. Thus, the Roman soldier becomes a composite figure embodying both fear and desire. This exemplifies or illustrates the symbolic density that Freudian interpretation is capable of. Freud's psychoanalytic theory also extends beyond dreams into everyday mistakes and slips. In the psychopathology of everyday life, Freud explores how repressed desires and emotions manifest in seemingly trivial forgettings or errors. He recounts an incident where a young man forgets the Latin word aliquis, meaning someone, while quoting Virgil. Freud traces this omission to a complex web of associations triggered by the word saints as relics, blood that flows on specific calendar days, and ultimately the anxiety that a woman might be pregnant. The forgotten word could have reminded the young man of this fear, so the unconscious intervenes and suppresses it, demonstrating how even slips of memory are meaningful. What fascinates literary critics about Freudian methods is the idea that, like the unconscious, literature expresses itself through symbols, metaphors, and indirect representations. Just as the unconscious cannot speak right directly but must manifest in disguised forms, literature does not typically state its meanings overtly. Instead, it shows experience through imagery, symbolism, and narrative structure. This parallel allows psychoanalytic theory to offer powerful tools of interpretation, uncovering latent content beneath the surface of a text. However, the fact that these interpretations are not literal or explicit means they are inherently subjective and open to debate. Determining whether a Freudian reading is insightful or far-fetched often depends on the skill and sensitivity of the interpreter. While critics may disagree over individual readings, the broader contribution of psychoanalysis lies in its ability to reveal the hidden desires, fears, and conflicts that shape human experience and, by extension, literature itself. Since the 1980s, trust in Sigmund Freud has declined, largely due to his negative views on women. He claimed women's sexuality was driven by narcissism, masochism, and passivity, and that they felt inferior due to penis envy, a belief that women desire male anatomy. Critics argue Freud reinforced these ideas by misinterpreting his patients' experiences, such as dismissing reports of childhood abuse as fantasies rather than real trauma. A key example is Freud's case study of Dora, an 18-year-old girl brought to him by her father after she threatened suicide. Dora's parents had a strained marriage and were close to another couple. The case Dora's father had an affair with Mrs. K, and the adults seemed to silently agree that Dora should be offered to Mr. K. When Mr. K sexually harassed at the age of 14 and 16, she rejected him both times. Freud dismissed her disgust and anger as neurotic, arguing she should have felt arousal. Her father sided with Mr. K, who denied everything. Freud analyzed two of Dora's dreams. In one recurring dream, a house burns down. Her father wakes her to escape while her mother tries to save her jewel case. Freud interpreted the dream as Dora's repressed desire to submit to Mr. K. He claimed replacing Mr. K with her father in the dream showed her wish for paternal protection from temptation. He also linked her resentment toward Mrs. K to leftover childhood jealousy, seeing Mrs. K as a rival for her father's love. Critics argue Freud ignored Dora's real trauma, Mr. K's harassment and her family's betrayal, instead blaming her reactions on mental instability. Feminists like those in the 1985 book In Dora's Case highlight how Freud prioritized male perspectives, framing Dora's resistance as irrational rather than justified. The study reveals Freud's tendency to pathologize women's anger and dismiss their lived experiences, exposing flaws in psychoanalysis' treatment of female patients. Dora's story remains a powerful example of how Freud's theories often reinforce gender stereotypes rather than uncovering truth. What Freudian psychoanalytic critics do: they focus on the difference between the conscious and unconscious mind when interpreting literature. They link the obvious meaning of a text to the conscious mind and the hidden meaning to the unconscious. They believe the hidden meaning is more important and try to uncover it. Psychoanalytic critics look closely at hidden emotions and motivations, whether they come from the author or the characters in the story. They point out signs in the story that reflect well-known ideas from psychoanalysis, such as emotional and sexual development stages in children, like oral, anal, or phallic stages. They also use psychoanalytic ideas to understand broader literary trends. For example, Harold Bloom's book The Anxiety of Influence argues that each new group of poets struggles with the greatness of earlier poets, similar to the Oedipus complex. Psychoanalytic critics focus more on the psychological background of a story than on its social or historical background. They are more interested in inner struggles, like between different desires or between family members, than in social struggles such as class conflict. Freudian psychoanalytic theory can help explain puzzling aspects of literature by focusing on the unconscious mind, hidden desires, and classic psychological conditions. A well-known example is Shakespeare's Hamlet. In the play, Hamlet learns that his uncle has murdered his father and married his mother. The ghost of his father asks Hamlet to get revenge by killing the uncle. But instead of acting quickly, Hamlet delays, even though he has enough evidence and is not shy about killing others in the play. This strange delay has confused critics for years. Freudian critics offer a psychological explanation. Hamlet cannot kill his uncle because he unconsciously identifies with him. According to Freud's theory of the Oedipus complex, Hamlet has deep repressed feelings of desire for his mother and jealousy towards his father. So when his uncle kills his father and takes his place with Hamlet's mother, he is doing what Hamlet secretly wished to do. This makes it hard for Hamlet to punish him. He feels guilty as if he were just as sinful. Freud first proposed this idea in the Interpretation of Dreams, published in 1900. He said Hamlet's inner conflict causes him to turn his anger inward, leading to guilt and hesitation. One key moment that supports this view is when Hamlet seems obsessed with his mother's sexual behavior during a scene in her bedroom. Freud also connects the play to Shakespeare's own life, noting that Hamlet was written soon after the death of Shakespeare's father and that Shakespeare had a son named Hamlet, a name almost identical to Hamlet. Still, the focus of the analysis is on the character of Hamlet, not Shakespeare himself. Freud's idea was later developed by Ernst Jones in his book Hamlet and Oedipus. James Joyce also explored this idea in a clever and detailed way in his novel Ulysses. Another example is Harold Pinter's play The Homecoming. In this story, a man returns from America to visit his all male family in London, bringing his wife with him. The father and brothers propose that she become a prostitute and earn money for them. Surprisingly, both the husband and wife agree to the plan. This strange plot seems unreal, but a Freudian reading can help explain it. M.W. Rowe, in her article Pinder's Freudian Homecoming, says the men in the play suffer from a mother fixation. Their mother died before they became adults and they still idolize her. Freud's theory suggests that men with a strong attachment to their mother may have trouble seeing other women as sexual partners unless they degrade them. So women are seen in two extremes, either pure and ideal like a mother or degraded and sexual like a prostitute. This split makes normal relationships difficult. The husband may have secretly seen his wife in this degraded way to be able to sleep with her, which explains why he agrees to the plan. In both Hamlet and The Homecoming, Freudian theory reveals how hidden desires and unresolved childhood conflicts can shape the behavior of characters and give new meaning to confusing actions.